Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. In this video, I'll be showcasing the cards that I made for New Year's, and in my family, we celebrate Lunar New Year. So when I saw this collection from Apple Blossom, I had been eyeing it for my cards for this year and just kind of waiting for a sale so that I can pick up all three sets that come in the collection, because across the three sets you get all 12 of the Chinese zodiac animals. And if you're not familiar with Lunar New Year and Chinese zodiac, basically every year has an animal that is associated with it. So in this case, 2021 is actually the year of the ox. So anyone born this year will be born in the year of the ox. And that's just a simple explanation of it. There's more kind of meaning and characteristics of what it means, and the types of personalities that you might have depending on the animal that you are, and who you get along best with, things like that. If you are interested in that, it's super fun to read up on. This set is pretty awesome because, well, I like a few things about this set as a collection. One, I kind of think of each of these stamps as sort of a medallion. So I love that each of the medallions are differently shaped, but they are still similar in style. So they all have the zodiac animal, but there's some floral elements that are intertwined into the animal itself. And so really, really beautiful, but they're all unique in their own way. So it's not just all of them are this circular medallion, and so it just keeps things a little bit interesting, especially if you go to use this set year over year, which is my intention. And then the other thing that I really love about it is that besides the four zodiac animals, you also get some sentiments or some words to build up a sentiment, and as well some additional sort of decorative elements that you can incorporate onto your cards. So this one in particular has all of the numbers, and it also has 19 and 20 conveniently combined into one stamp. So that's really nice if you want to kind of build out the year. So whether you're using it for maybe somebody's birthday, or like me, using it for New Year's cards, you can easily stamp out the year 2021. And then each of the zodiac animals also has what I presume to be the Chinese character for that animal. I don't, speak or read Chinese, so I don't know for certain that that's the case, but that's my assumption anyways. And then this set in particular is really nice because it has four different decorative corners, so you can use these stamps to decorate or create a background onto your page as well. And you also get these additional little decorative elements. Each of the three sets has something a little bit different. So this one has a few more sentiments, so it's heavier on the sentiments and lighter on the decorative elements, and this one has a nice combination of the two, so you get quite a few decorative elements here and also some additional sentiments as well. One thing that I found kind of surprising is that you can't build the sentiment Happy New Year. And they have birthday on your birthday, and I think there was another birthday one, but maybe not. Oh, it just says have a great one. But you can't build up Happy New Year. You do have the option of year of the, so that you can say year of the ox or year of the tiger. But I thought that it was sort of lacking the fact that you can't just stamp out Happy New Year or even find enough single words to build that sentiment. So that was surprising to me, because when I went to stamp out a sentiment for my cards, which you'll see in a little bit, I couldn't find Happy New Year here, and then I realized in all of my stash I really don't have that sentiment at all either. So I did have to end up going with Year of the Ox, which is 2020's Chinese zodiac animal. The other thing that this is just tiny nitpicking, because I'm so used to Tonic Studios, and whenever Tonic Studios does something like this, I I think are very careful to always give you the most versatility and variety as possible. So you, even if there's like multiple sets within a full collection, they don't give you repeats. So, for example, in this case, you have two stamps, year, and then the second stamp of the, so that you can build up your sentiment. And you have that in each of the three sets, which makes sense because if somebody was only going to buy the one set, you want them to be able to build up that sentiment. What would have been nice is if for each of the three, there was either a different font or different sizing so that if you did buy all three, like I have, then you would have more options as opposed to three of the exact same set of stamps, which is what we have here. So it would have been nice to have, let's say, like this size year of the, so that you could kind of mix and match a little bit more, or just have a different font, or just have something a little bit different. And so that's the thing that I feel like would have been nice, because then you just don't have duplicates. But that's just a small nitpick. Otherwise, it's a beautiful collection, and I love having all three so that I can kind of go back to this year after year and use it for birthdays too. So, for example, I was born in the year of the monkey, and if I were making a birthday card for myself, I could use the monkey stamp in this set here. So that's kind of nice. I did not flip this set of cards because I just didn't have the time. And so I basically went for what can I do quickly but still have it look nice. And so I would class these more as sort of, if you needed to quote mass produce cards, these would probably be really quick makes. In my case, mass production is 10 cards. So that's what I have here, because that's what the number I needed to make. I'm basically only giving New Year's cards to my 9 nieces and nephews and my mom. so that's where I came up with the number 10. And to make things really fast, I used this gorgeous paper pad from DCWV, and I think I got it from Joann's. It's gorgeous. I don't know if you can still get this particular one, but it's 48 sheets. I originally got it thinking that I would make a mini album out of it, and I still will. It's just taking me a little longer to get to that project. But what's really great is that half of what comes in this paper pad actually is foiled, so you have some really, really beautiful. They're single-sided, but it's pretty thick paper. I would say lightweight cardstock. And I love the colorway. You get gorgeous prints, and I think they're obviously Asian themed, but in particular probably more Chinese, more Japanese. And so really, really pretty. And you do get 2 of each design. So there's still plenty left for my mini album project when I get to that. And I didn't even use full sheets of the sheets that I did use. So I still have leftovers from these. Now, I do have 9 nieces and nephews, but they're split across 3 families. So I could have stretched each 12 by 12 sheet out to create more cards if I wanted, but I didn't want any 2 siblings to have cards that were too similar, and because most of the cards are pretty similar already, the only thing that's really setting them apart is the background. So here are the first 2, and they're probably the simplest application of just the design, because all of them will kind of share this aesthetic, where I use these really awesome numbered die sets that I have from Crafter's Companion. Actually, I don't have the full packaging because of how I store it, but it's their Make a Statement stamp and die set. So you get the dies for the numbers that cut the full number out, 1 die for each number, so you do not get the shadow or backing plate die, but you do have a solid stamp if you wanted to kind of stamp a solid color behind it, and you do get stamps for the ordinals if you were doing like somebody's 50th birthday, for example. And they do sell it in individual letters as well. They have, I've seen on Crafter's Companion website, bundled deals where you can buy the full alphabet, but it's quite an investment. And so I've only picked out a few letters to buy. I don't have the entire alphabet. I would love to, but it's just a little bit expensive. But what's nice about the alphabet is that it's just the same as the numbers, except you also get some additional stamps to complete the sentiment. So you get the letter L in both the die and the shadow stamp, but you also get a stamp for to complete the word love and lots of. So it's kind of nice, and each of them has something different that utilizes the letter to complete a word. So really love that, and I really love how substantial it is across, especially a 4x6 card like this one. So each of the letters is about 2¼ inch tall. So you really don't need much else, especially if you're using it this way. But that's the other reason why I didn't get the alphabet, is because I generally make cards roughly this size. This happens to be a 4x6 because I was using card blanks from Crafter's Companion box kits, and that's generally what they've been including lately. But even just if I were to make my own card base, I would be using USA 2 size, which is 4¼ by 5½, and that's pretty close to this size. And you can see the numbers, you can only really fit 3, 4 across. So I think I would use the numbers way more often than I would use all of the letters to spell out a word or a name. So for the medallion here, I just heat embossed with some gold embossing powder, and that's pretty much it. I had 2 different gold embossing powders I was playing with. One was like a gold pearl from WoW, and the other is a metallic gold. So that's the only difference between these 2 cards. Then my next 2 cards, I decided to try something that was oriented more portrait style, and I don't know. When I put the badge, the medallion, in place of the 0, it didn't read as the year 2021, just because it has to be broken out this way. And so these are the only 2 cards that I made with this orientation, because I just didn't think that it looked quite as nice with incorporating the little medallion on the front. And so on this card, I just put it in the middle and on the inside of the card. Oh, this sending wishes. Because I don't have anything Happy New Year's, this was the closest I found to like a New Year's sentiment. I guess this is kind of a gap in my stash. Maybe it's more reason to go shopping again. But I have this set from Art Impressions, and I think it's more holiday, but I figured sending warm wishes, especially since my nieces and nephews are back in Virginia and they just had this huge snowstorm, so it felt appropriate. So those are those 2 cards. Oh, I didn't mention, so I do have the foil backing on this, and the way that I achieved that was I die cut the number out of black cardstock, and then lots of different ways you could do this, but the way I chose to do it was I glued it down to the gold foil card stock and then just fussy cut around it. And when I did my fussy cutting, what I tried to do was get my scissors kind of under the edge of the die cut. That way you don't have any gold, or at least you minimize the amount of gold that's peeking out. And for the 0 to cut on the inside, all I did was use my little, I have this cute little craft knife, and surprisingly it wasn't that hard to cut a clean curve. You just run your craft knife along sort of that the ridge that your die cut makes, and so I was able to get a pretty clean cut there. So even though the die set doesn't come with a die to cut the backing plate, you can still kind of achieve it without too much trouble, especially if you, and I don't even like fussy cutting, and I was able to do it pretty okay. Here's another way you can get that shadow effect is I just die cut the numbers twice, once out of red foil and once out of black, and then when I adhered them together, I offset it a little bit. So you get that, just that thin little bit of black, sort of as a drop shadow, and it helps the number be just a smidge more legible because it'll set it off from the background a little bit. And for the medallion in this case, I used sticky embossing powder and I put Nouveau gilding flakes over top. So it's got a pretty neat texture, and it has a really nice shiny gold finish to it. And just depending on how you use your gilding flakes and how you sort of burnish it in, you can achieve different looks. So if you compare this, or if you look at this one in particular, try to find an angle where you can see it. So here you can kind of catch areas where there were slightly larger gilding, larger flakes, like right here. And it's a little bit shinier, it's a little bit smoother, it's not as grainy. And so you can get that look if you peel off larger flakes and just kind of gently lay it down and then push it into your sticky embossing powder. Because I was coming to the end of my little pot of gilding flakes. What I do is I actually decant some of the gilding flakes into just a smaller container, and I was coming to the end of that small container, so a lot of it was just the powdery sort of leftovers from previous gilding, because once you lay it down, you just kind of burnish it in, and then whatever doesn't stick to the card, you can pour back into your container and just use that on the next project. But by then, by the end of your container, you'll probably have sort of gilding dust as opposed to gilding flakes, and that's what a lot of this is. But I still like keeping all of that because you do get a very different look from it, which can be nice if that's the effect that you're going for. And then on this one, I did another backing plate, but I made my own sort of paper so that it basically is just black cardstock, and then I took this glue stick. It says it's a craft bond and it's extra strength, but truth be told, I don't really know how this would compare to just regular Elmer's school glue. Because I don't think I would necessarily use it like to put a mini album together or anything like that, but it's plenty sticky enough to hold onto gilding flakes, which is pretty thin. So all I did was just rub it on some black cardstock and then put gilding flakes over it. I will also mention that if you were to do that technique, work in small areas because this seems to dry pretty quickly. And so I tried to cover like a piece of cardstock about the size of this card, and I just did the whole panel, for example. But by the time I got like halfway across the card, this half was already dry and wasn't holding the gilding flakes anymore. All I did was just, layer up some more glue, but if you don't want to be wasteful with your glue, I would just work in small areas and put some glue down and put some of the gilding flakes right away and put some more glue down, put some more gilding flakes on. And I was going intentionally for this sort of mottled look, so it wasn't 100% coverage. I don't even know if you could really achieve 100% coverage with something like a glue stick, so I wouldn't necessarily go that route. I would rather do the heat embossing with sticky heat embossing powder and do that if you were looking for like a more solid impression. And if you're not familiar with sticky embossing powder, it basically works the exact same way as regular heat embossing powder. Embossing powder. You kind of stamp your image with a sticky ink, something like a Versamark, and then you would pour the sticky embossing powder over and then take a heat gun to it in order to melt that powder. So there are those two cards. Then the next two are my attempt at stamping on foil. So I had to do this multiple times. I was using an archival ink. And in my case, it was Stays On, and it was just really hard to get a full clear impression. I don't know if that's just the nature of trying to stamp onto foil, or if it's the ink I'm using, or if it's the stamp. I'm not sure, because the stamp stamps out perfectly fine, otherwise. So I would think that it's not the stamp and it's something else. But in this case, what I had to do was anywhere I didn't get a really um, nice impression of the ink transfer, I just went in with a black Sharpie and I drew it in. Cause so I don't know if it's immediately obvious, but right, I'll show you where I did it, and you can tell me if you can see it or not. But pretty much this whole area didn't stamp out. Or at least it was just very light, if any ink made it onto there. So I actually just went in with a black Sharpie and I drew in to complete the image as best I could to match, um, another impression of it that I was using as reference. And then in this case, it stamped out pretty okay. There's in this area, this detailed area here didn't stamp out so great, but I left it. I didn't want to go back in, but I think just the choice of foil and whatnot, the black was hardly legible. It was hard to kind of read the image, and so I did go in with a white gel pen over top and just added some outlining highlights so that you could make out the image a little bit better. Not too sure how successful I was at that. If you know how to get really good impressions onto gold foil card, definitely let me know, because I don't know that I find myself wanting to do this often, but it's definitely a technique that I'd like to be able to do if it's possible to do it, and still get like a really nice crisp clear impression, just because I do like the effect of it and how it looks. And I don't have a die cut form of this, and so just having the stamp, I think this is the only way to kind of get this look, right? I don't know. So would love to get any tips from any of you out there if you can help me out with that. Then the last two sets of cards, I used this really, really pretty paper. It was so pretty that I didn't want to cover it in the same way as I did with the other cards, where I used the numbers, which nearly covers everything up. So I just went with a little bit of a more plain or basic design with these. And the only thing with this one that I've started to do is I have all of this leftover heavyweight chipboard in these like small strips, and I kept them because it felt wasteful to throw them away, but I have no obvious use for them. So I decided that let me just use it instead of foam. So under here, instead of using black foam like I would normally, I just cut up some of my heavyweight chipboard and use that instead to give dimension to this strip here. And the nice thing about that is that because it's heavyweight chipboard, it does make your card feel pretty substantial, because foam is really light by comparison. And when I gave this to my husband to look at, he asked me if this was like metal or something because of the gold foil. It I guess seems like it could have been like a thin metal plate, but it's not. So if you're looking for something to like really add some like heft or substance to your card to make it feel like very substantial or expensive, then that might be a way to achieve it. Just, I don't know if this would set it over the limit in terms of what a single stamp will ship through the U.S. Postal Service, but I'm sending all of these along with all of the Valentine's Day cards I made for my nieces and nephews and the candy that I'm sending them, in a box to my mom, and she's going to help me kind of distribute it to all of my nieces and nephews. So I didn't have to worry about shipping in my case, but that might be a consideration if you do find yourself with a lot of leftover heavyweight chipboard or chipboard of any type, just knowing that there might be some extra postage if it does make it weigh more than, I think, the 1 ounce allotment that you get. Oh, the other thing that I've started to use that I really like a lot is 3D collage glue. So here I just put like a little daub of that glue right in the center just to hold that center up and give it that nice domed effect. And then I put tacky glue along the two sides. So the tacky glue is still holding the edge down, but the 3D collage glue is keeping that center raised. And it's a really nice look compared to using black foam like I did here, or chipboard like I will be in the future, because this is really flat and there's no kind of curvature to it. So really enjoying the look of what you can do with 3D collage glue. Of course, you could use a glue dot too, I guess, to achieve the same or similar look. So these are my Lunar New Year cards for this year. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and until my next video, happy crafting, stay safe, and stay healthy. Bye!